Hello and welcome to the Womxn Show. I'm Lenina Rassool and today we are speaking about youth empowerment, but more specifically the mentoring of young girls in grade 12 while they are still at school. After the break, we're going to be speaking to two women from the organization called Link to Grow, who provide mentoring to girls in grade 12 in order to help them grow their skills, their development, and their social capital. But before that, let's have a look at a short video about the work that they do. Let's have a look.
I think today was about people finding ways to make a difference in their own lives and perhaps in the lives of others, and to think differently perhaps about the way we think we can make an impact in changing South Africa for the better.
When you go to conferences, it's the same kind of professionals, same people from the same industries that come together, and then the same sort of ideas come out. And you're not really sure that it's hearing the voices of where the real issues are coming from. So I must say it's very noble work being done by Link to Grow. Very nice, very humbling to be part of the experience for the day.
I came in today thinking this would be quite a corporate affair. It turned out to be a bit more like group therapy.
There is so much potential, and we thought if we can create a platform where the old wisdom and the young energy, or maybe sometimes the young wisdom and the old energy get together, maybe we can get a conversation going and we can start a movement to say, let's change the narrative in our country and say, what can I do in my own environment to make South Africa a better place for all?
What step can you take towards creating this dream? We've talked a lot about now our dream and our possibility, and we're creative. So what can you do towards creating this dream? It's not about showing each other how clever we are. It's about making a space for the other person to do it slowly in their own time, as long as it takes.
The conference was something where I'll be very honest, it was a little bit unusual, and I had to come here with the attitude of have an open mind and let's see how this turns out. And it's been the most amazing day, just because the old wisdom, and yet there was the young wisdom, and then it was the young energy, but there's the old energy, and the combination of the opinions, the general attitude of people, the ideas. It's been such a fulfilling and happy day, and it's just a very good example of, we're always told to feel good, it often helps talking to strangers, which is also a particularly uncomfortable thing to do. But in fact, by doing that, today has shown you that the community is there, we all have the same values, the same dreams, and the future for our country is just so positive. It was a fantastic day.
I think it was wonderful. I think the way it was facilitated was just brilliant, you know. And I think the way the group was put together, it was a diverse group, racially, sexually, age-wise, gender-wise. And I just think that everybody felt that their opinion mattered and they gave it with commitment.
I enjoyed the honesty of everyone that was here. I think what I gathered is that we're all more alike than we are different. We share similar struggles and similar challenges, and this was a great platform to share that and to see where we can connect and where we can build from there.
The level of connection that people found with each other, that people from tremendously diverse backgrounds came together and shared a sense of a common purpose for making this country a better place, and I think that provided a forum for people to do that in a creative, constructive way in which people can then go out and perhaps make a difference. And I think that connecting with people was very important, and the way it was structured, I think, helped people to listen, to share, and to engage in a way that perhaps they wouldn't have been able to do in any other forum.
People are just going through a lot, in life, and it's nice to be able to listen properly. I think that was also a challenge to really listen for 2 minutes straight to somebody just talking without interrupting them, without interjecting or anything, letting them get their point across. So it's a really good exercise to learn, and yeah.
The event was very fruitful for me, and it was really challenging. It was a good challenge. It opened my mind and my thought process, not to just live for myself, but it was a good reminder that my life can be impactful to other people and grow our country at large.
No, I think it was deeply meaningful to a lot of people. One gets a sense, a feel of a process and of an experience, and it's very clear that there was a tremendous amount of learning, sharing, connecting going on today. And hopefully people will take that back into their workspaces, their schools, their environments in which they work, and make a difference, and realize that each and every one of us is capable of making a difference. It's just how we approach things, and realize that we have the power to transform things within our respective areas.
That was a short video about the organization Link to Grow and the mentoring work that they do. We are going to take a short break, but we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we are speaking about youth mentorship and specifically looking at the mentorship of young girls who are still at school. And joining me in studio is Shirley Brink, who is the vice chairperson of Link to Grow, and Suzanne Leighton, who is the co-founder. And Link to Grow is an organization that mentors young girls in grade 12. Shirley, Suzanne, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So my first question is, obviously, what is Link to Grow and why mentoring young girls?
Okay, I'll answer what is Link to Grow. It's an organization of women committed to the advancement of women. We've been going for about 13 years, but the group belonged to an American organization for 10 years before that. And then we decided to create our own NPO here so that our membership fees, instead of going into the blue yonder, into admin, could be used directly for our projects. So we are a small group of women, and over the years we've had all kinds of projects like reading, creches, home for abused women, and our latest flagship project is Adopt a Mentee, which Shirley is very involved with.
Yes, Shirley, you work quite closely with the mentoring, and so I wanted to ask about the shift then, because it hasn't always been, but the shift in mentoring young girls in leadership.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, our main focus is to advance women so that they can contribute to society and contribute to their community and families and feel confident in doing so. So it was a natural progression to actually get involved with students, and we mentor grade 12 students. We have two schools, Good Hope Seminary in Cape Town, and our latest acquisition has been the Windermere School in Salt River. Maitland, my apologies, Maitland, quite right, sorry. And in doing so, we select children who actually apply to come and join us, and should they be successful, they are then exposed to a whole range of courses. We allow them to do psychometrics, which guides them on what career choice they should choose. And our mentors are professional women who have had experience in the commercial world, plus many of them are psychologists, doctors, lawyers, and in doing so, that allows our youth to actually be further exposed in those chosen fields, if that's what they want to do. Because today you don't have to have a degree to be successful. You can just be that person. And that's our main focus, is also to allow our students and our young ladies to be confident within themselves, to know how to conduct the way in which they walk, to know how to conduct interviews, to feel good about themselves, to look good. And by doing that, they move into a better life in general. Because many of our young ladies are from disadvantaged backgrounds. They don't necessarily have the financial ability to actually go to university. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to be successful within themselves and be able to give back to community.
I mean, I love that. And I know it's a narrative that is being pushed sort of across the youth, you know, with our very high unemployment rate in South Africa. You know, the website, when it describes the organization, speaks very much to part of the mission looking at the underrepresentation of women. And so we speak a lot, I think, about the lack of role models. And one of my favorite quotes is actually, you can't be what you can't see. And so the fact, I think, that you are connecting young women to doctors, psychologists, to women who are in those professions is so powerful. And I say that as someone who comes from actually Maitland in that area, you know, we just didn't see them. And I don't think also our media reflects women in professional careers often enough for us to see. So the exposure is great. I wanted to ask, so, you know, in tackling the underrepresentation of women in leadership positions, and I think the website said in business, in education, in politics as well, as women yourselves, you know, why is that such a huge issue?
I think it's just that a lot of the youth today actually don't know what's available. So what we do is we take them up to the university open days, but we also show them that there's lots of other things that they can do. Not all of these girls are top students, and so we don't believe that matters. For example, we had one young woman who wanted to be a psychologist, but her marks just weren't good enough. She was really people-oriented, and her mentor found something that she liked the sound of, and she ended up becoming an air hostess, which didn't require tertiary education at a university, but it gave her something that suited her, and she might not have thought about that herself. So I think it's exposure, what's out there, what's available. There's so much choice. And I think if you come from a home where your parents weren't educated or know about those kind of things, who do you ask? So the mentor from Link to Grow becomes an older sister, a wise aunt, a confidant, somewhere that you can spend time and just be safe. Talk about what your concerns are, and then be shown all kinds of things that you wouldn't be able to find on your own.
I love that because it also speaks to sort of access to information, which we know is a huge issue. And so even if you have access to the internet, let's say, for example, are you digitally literate enough to be able to navigate sort of the wealth of information there? And you are making me think of one of many, many years ago when I was a new journalist. I did this article about a skills development program, and I got the opportunity, and I just want to share the story to interview some of the participants. And one of the first participants was a young girl, had just matriculated. She was from the Kensington Factory area. I think I'd actually gone to Windermere High School. And I remember the first question I asked her was, what did you want to be when you grow up? You know, what do you want to be? And she said, you know, well, I wanted to be a teacher, but there was no money to study, so I didn't do that. And that was the end of her statement. And she had never heard of a bursary. And I thought, how is it possible that someone who lives in the same area as me had never heard of a bursary? And started making me interrogate, you know, when you're speaking about also the exposure that the rest of the family had, whether they know anyone who had gone to go study, you know, how information travels. Do you find when you work with these young women that there is a lack of access to information about career choices, that there is just, you know, the situation that I'm described, you just come in and they don't know what they don't know?
Absolutely. And it's interesting you've just mentioned the word about career choices, because as Link to Grow evolve, we as women continuously are on the lookout as to how we can expose these young ladies to more and more in society and to more and more careers. So one of our initiatives from last year, we introduced the Career Day. So both Windermere plus Good Hope Seminary now have what we call a Career Day, where we invite the tertiary institutions to come and present, as well as Department of Nursing, the traffic department. We try and expose them to different career opportunities, which again don't all involve having to go to university, having to invest financially, and through that exposure they can see what other opportunities there are. So that, together with our psychometric testing, which allows the girls to understand what they could be most suited to, and where their passion lies, because there's no right or wrong in psychometric testing. It takes into account obviously your psyche as to where you feel you might want to go, and then it marries that with your skills, and it says, right, together with that, these are the different industries or career options that you could go into. Most of these girls have not been exposed to any of that, so any exposure that they can get is to their advantage. We're also looking at doing a buddy system this year, where they can actually buddy up with somebody and talk to them as a friend, and look at different ways, because often a mentor and a mentee, the mentee feels that, you know, at times they can feel intimidated and they don't want to ask for fear of looking stupid.
Yeah.
And again, as we as adults know, there's no such thing as a stupid question. But when you're a grade 12 young lady, you are intimidated, you know, and many of them don't know how to apply to actually even get into a university. They don't know the internet. They're not exposed to computers. You know, we also give them data every month. Every girl gets data from Link to Grow, and I'm mentioning all these things because obviously all these things that we do cost money.
Yeah.
So the psychometric test, for example, it costs 3,000 Rand per student. The career day, we try and get that for free through obviously the tertiary institutions come in, but we need to provide other areas for those people who are presenting, such as tea, coffee, and it might seem like it costs nothing, but when you're doing events we do 4 or 5 events a year, it does cost money.
And time is money as well.
Exactly, and you know, we do branding. So we do a branding course for them where they can understand, as I said, how to walk, how to present themselves in interviews, how to make themselves look presentable as individuals. That costs money. We need to, you know, often pay people to present those courses. Sometimes we get them for free, but other times we have to pay for them. And to sustain our costs, we really need funding. And as you know, we are an NPO. No woman on the within the Link to Grow area, or Link to Grow Club, earns any money from doing this work. We do it, again, from our own time. We invest our own time into it, our own emotions, our own experiences, and our own professionalism. So, and that in itself takes a lot of energy. But we love it, and the rewards that we see from some of the girls that go on to becoming, I'm using these words, but they don't make them successful. And again, when I say that they, as engineers and lawyers, they are obviously successful, but they don't need to become engineers and lawyers. They just need to become wholesome, full-rounded, confident young ladies who, again, give back to society and feel good about that.
So thank you, Shirley, for that explanation. I just want to jump on to what you were saying about confidence. And so because it's the Womxn Show, we speak a lot about women who are well into their careers already, that experience various levels of imposter syndrome, is what they love to call it, when they find themselves entering sort of any workplace. You know, I have someone that's very close to me who works in the traffic department, for example, who is a traffic officer, from female executives that come in who have worked at corporate and even at executive level and leadership level. And often there's a feeling, there's a lack of confidence, despite them having all the appropriate skills and degrees to be where they are. How important is it? And I know we spoke about this sort of offline. I was just saying this is wonderful because we have all of these women already who are in these positions dealing with lack of confidence. How important is it to sort of foster that confidence really early? And do you see, I mean, you know, you are women who have been in the sector and in the corporate sector. So do you see that shift in confidence as they are gaining sort of skills earlier?
So I think what happens is that the minute you focus attention on someone it also tells them that they are important.
Yeah.
So immediately their confidence will be boosted because they're being seen, they're being heard. Somebody's taking the time to meet them, take them for coffee, ask them what they're interested in or what they want to do. So immediately that helps. And I think that the imposter syndrome and losing confidence is something which the mentor, the older person, who the students might look up to, can talk about and say, you know what, when I had been working for so long and then this happened and then I started doubting myself. And so you can have an honest relationship where they can see that even somebody who's older and has achieved something can also have that lack of confidence. So those two things together, combined with the fact that we do put them through skills training, branding workshops, how to write CVs, how to conduct yourself, etc., I think that all goes to building their confidence. And it's amazing what a difference it makes. They're pretty vocal anyway, I think, but some of them are quite shy and some of them are not quite sure. And I think you can see from the beginning to later on that it definitely makes a huge difference.
And even some of those who are like quite vocal are hiding a low self-esteem and are hiding a low confidence. And so I think it's great to come in and bring sort of these more mature women who have come in and experienced same or similar or can share their stories. What has been the feedback from the girls? I mean, how long have you been doing the mentoring now?
5 years?
5, 6 years, yeah.
Okay, and so you've seen some of them go through then that journey and then afterwards. And what has been some of the feedback about the role that Link to Grow has played in their lives?
Interesting, they absolutely love it. We've only ever had good feedback from our girls. They really feel that the exposure has helped them in every aspect of their lives. And many of them have, just as Sue was saying, have become more confident, which is exactly what we want them to be, you know. And they've found their voices, which is a good thing, you know. We do a survey at the end of every year with our mentors and our mentees in order for us to learn as a NPO and to see where we can gain further knowledge from their comments. And we even asked the question as to what do they think Link to Grow didn't necessarily do correctly. And it was interesting because last year I actually took a few girls out for lunch and I actually asked them these questions and I videoed them. And it was very interesting. One of the young ladies said that she couldn't fault Link to Grow in any way. And they mean it. You know, they are confident. They do speak from their hearts. They have got voices. And that was really, for me, encouraging to hear that they do love us, you know. And I do want to touch on the fact, mature women. We are mature women, and again, as Link to Grow evolves, we are diversifying within our own organization. We are bringing in younger ladies, different cultures, different experiences, different professions, to make us more globally accepted in many ways, and from a community point of view, because you don't necessarily want to only have one sector of the population doing this good cause. You need to have the diversity which we are looking for. And we've been very blessed, actually, that we have grown in that aspect of our organization as well.
That is fantastic. Ladies, we have to take a short break.
Thank you.
But we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we have been speaking about youth development and more specifically the growth and development of young girls who are still at school. And still with me in studio is Shirley Brink and Suzanne Leighton from an organization called Link to Grow that provides mentoring to girls in grade 12. And Shirley and Suzanne, we've been speaking a lot about young women, confidence, building skills, helping them to sort of find a direction in life, which doesn't necessarily need to be their first choice, but just looking at sort of what they're good at. And also connecting them to other professional women so that they can, get that experience and mentoring and see. One of the things the website says about the organization and the purpose is also to strengthen social capital. And I found that really interesting. So I'm going to ask first, what is social capital, so that the audience knows? And also, how does the mentoring process sort of strengthen and increase young girls' access to people and their social capital?
Okay, so the value of a person in society, what they can do, how they can contribute, how they can integrate, how they can draw other people in, all of that increases the capital within a society. So if we work with young girls who are aimless and don't know what to do and don't have any direction, then what happens to them? They leave school and they try and get a job, and there's unemployment's terrible, and then they hang around the street corners. I don't need to go any further. It's a terrible scenario. If we can change the life of any of our girls, and our organization's not big enough to do a lot, but we've got 33 matric girls this year, and we've been doing it for 5 or 6 years. It adds up. And I also think that when we make a difference to one girl, she goes home, talks to her siblings and her friends and the kids next door, and what we teach and give and show to one person, I think radiates out. And that's how we build our social capital. So we do a little bit that we can manage, which is our girls, knowing that it will radiate out and that they will make a difference to other girls. There are lots of girls in the matric class, probably more than 100, and I suspect that all of them are completely aware of what we're doing. So even though they're not on our program, they're going to know about open days at universities and going to visit the local fire station or the traffic department or whatever. And then how to apply for a bursary. You say the one student didn't even know there was a bursary. And I think that our one student said that Link to Grow made the difference in her life of not knowing what to do and becoming a medical student, because she didn't know how and when to apply and that she could get a bursary. Her marks were good. But she wouldn't have known that. So I think that's all pulling and integrating and weaving and growing our social capital.
That is so interesting. I mean, it's so relevant also when we're looking at, I think, again, just to bring up access to information and just like sort of how to get there. And also the fact that doing these things are very intimidating. And again, a personal story, when I applied for journalism, I did not know the process, so I was the only student who took my mom along with me. I remember, and I was so happy to have my mom with me on the stage. She took off work, and when I got there, she was the only mother there, and I didn't want to be seen with her. So that's like one of my stories. And so just providing someone that's able to provide that information in a safe way is really great. I also want to ask, when you connect mentees, or when you connect young girls to mentors or people who are established in industries, you also connect them to not just one person, but a network of people, right? So they've got, now they've got someone to ask about these things, but they've also got, that is a secondary definition of social capital also, is knowing someone who knows people who are able to help you. I'm always fascinated by the statistic that usually people find employment not directly by applying, but by hearing or being hired, hearing about a job from someone who knew about a job. And so have you found that just being connected to people outside of their area, and it's not hard to imagine that some people don't know anybody outside of the immediate area that they grew up in. Do you find that is also a valuable aspect of the program?
I think the link part of the Link to Grow was always about connections. So we didn't want to do things for other people, nor did we want to even pay for it. So for example, the Home for Abused Women, we helped them sort out their books so that they could apply for their government grant. We did give them money, but that wasn't the main aim. It was, how can we link you with someone who can sort out the admin so that you can get back onto your government grant? And with the girls as well, you take them they're matched up with a mentor, but like you say, they can then, I might know somebody where they can do an internship or a holiday job or a come to work day and get exposed to what's going on. So it's mainly about linking and networking.
That's fantastic. There's also another event that you do. I'm going to deduct Old Wisdom, Young Energy, where vibrant, youthful perspective meet wisdom, experience, and retrospection. That's how it's described. Can you tell us about that event?
Okay, so we did about 5 events where we tried to get different people to talk to each other. So we wanted them to be different ages, different cultures, from different parts of the country, from different professions. Some people worked, some people didn't, whatever. And we got them all together in a room. And then we put them into small circles so that it's not a presentation. It's not me who knows something is standing up and talking to you and telling you, which is a one-way flow of information. We always, at all the events, sat the people in small circles of about 5 or 6 people, which was really interesting because they were randomly placed. They kind of walked around and moved, and then they sat in the chair closest to where they were. So they didn't know who they were going to be talking to. And they had personal, close, heart-to-heart conversations about big deals. We were talking about what is it that you can contribute to make South Africa like you'd like it to be your dream. So it was, first of all, what is your dream, and then what can you contribute? We had different topics, various things, leadership, and we did one on racism, which, it was quite scary for me because I know that inherently you can be racist without even knowing it. And I said to my colleagues, if I stand up and say something that's racist, I am going to hope that someone will tell me and that I won't defend myself. And that's the risk I'm going to take. And we had the most amazing day, people sitting, talking about their experiences and what it meant to them and how they had or hadn't. Anyway, so that was Old Wisdom, Young Energy. But in fact, we also thought it was young energy and young wisdom, yes. and the energy from the older people as well. It was a successful thing. We went right up until just before COVID. We did our event, and then we haven't done it again, but we might.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Because, there's a theme when we think about linking, and I think a topic of conversation that I've seen, even in social justice circles, is also an intergenerational approach. And we know that every generation says, in our time and going forward, I have a 9-year-old daughter. And so I'm starting to interrogate, what does the messaging look like? Because she doesn't care that I walk to school every day. She cannot conceptualize it because she can't see it. But when you conceptualize this topic, is it also about sort of, I guess I'm asking about sort of the value and the importance of connecting multi-generations with each other and sharing experiences. And you said, when you flipped it, and you said young wisdom. Actually, I'm going to ask about that. I'm going to ask because young people are not often treated as if they are wise at all. Have you found through these platforms that there is young wisdom and there is a lot to learn from our younger generation?
It was amazing also to get people to listen to each other, because at one I did with a church group where the one church had been contributing and helping financially to another church in a completely different underprivileged area. And we brought them together just before Christmas, and this was the gift that we gave them. And the most amazing thing was that the one woman said, I've never spoken to the pastor before. She'd always said good morning and thank you and walked past and shook hands, but she'd never had a conversation with him. And the youngsters said that they had never been listened to by the older generation. So that was very interesting to me. And then we had gumboot dancing in the church, which I was rather taken aback by, because I didn't expect that. But that came out of the mix because I said, okay, let's get together and let's do. What are we going to do? And is there some music we can bring in? And then another time we did it at a school, and some of the youngsters who were in high school got to sit in a circle with the headmaster. And again, they'd never had a proper conversation with them. And I think that when you allow the older generation to actually listen to the youngsters, when they feel safe enough to really say what they mean, it can be very enlightening. And in both of those cases it was. And for our Old Wisdom, Young Energy, we had youngsters that I had known from school that were my children's age. We had some of our young mentees together with, our oldest person there was 95, I think, and Merle Hodges was also way into her 80s, and they were communicating, really having intimate conversations with each other and listening. It was a delight to see.
I mean, this sounds really, really lovely. I actually want to bring it into, so often, your experience with young people at these events and also mentoring is great. The feedback that is coming out is like often young people don't feel listened to. And this is actually brought up, again and again in spaces I've been in where young people, that have provided for a safe space for young people to raise their voices. We know there's a lack of representation, and often I will meet people who want to do more, but what they really want to do is dictate to young people. They are still not listening. I'm not accusing anyone, I'm just saying, clearly this consistent expression of young people who feel they are not listened to. When I bring organizations on, I often say we have a limited capacity in terms of what we can do and who we can reach, and that's dependent on funding and finances, Shirley, as you explained. But if there are people in the audience who want to go out there and try to help and mentor young people, what advice would you give them, or learnings from actually doing those mentoring? How can they approach young people? What are there any learnings or lessons that you can sort of give to them if they want to be a mentor? Not necessarily with Link to Grow, but even just in our, as you said, as a gift from ourselves to young people in our area. Every area has young people.
I think for me, in becoming a mentor, I've only been with the organization now for actually probably 5 years, and I became a mentor last year. I first wanted to get to know the organization, how it operated, and it's interesting because one of my biggest learnings has been listening. And again, allowing our youth to have a voice and to feel that they are being heard. So I think for any person that feels they would like to become a mentor, it's in many ways to say, what would you like to give? And giving is listening. And it's not dictating. It's exactly that, and allowing the individual to be comfortable. And I think in, our professional businesses, many of us have been mentors. And I think, we've led, we've mentored, and we've had to listen. But we've listened to either people who could be older than us, the same age as us, or slightly younger. It hasn't been to the youth as such. And I think in growing as adults, because it's actually what Sue said. There was a lot of young wisdom and old energy in that room, in many of the conferences that we had. And it was exciting. And you actually, as a more mature person, left feeling far more energized and believing in our younger society, because they do have so much to offer. And I think if I talk to all the mothers out there and the fathers, you are, besides being a parent, you are also a mentor. And allow your child to talk. It's so, so important. Allow the youth to talk and learn from it. So
that's lovely. I want to ask also then, as mentors coming in, and not just yourselves, like the group of mentors that come in, as the feedback, is it challenging? Does it challenge your own sort of thinking? Does it change you in any way? Does it also help you to sort of grow? Is mentoring also a learning process?
I think that most of the mentors said that they came in wanting to give and to help, and that they learned as much as they had made it available for the mentees to learn. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a given. It's definitely a give and take situation. And some of the like Corinne, who's also a co-founder and who runs the mentorship program, she doesn't have daughters. So this is a way that she's really connected with the girl young people, which is interesting for her.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that explanation. I also just want to, we don't have lots of time left. So before we finish up, I do want to ask about, gender representation. And it was very inspiring for me to sort of read that we working at such an early stage to close the gender gap, obviously in the future. Now, the gender gap itself is looking at, when I looked at some of the statistics, it showed that in 2020, only 27% of women made up leaders as women. And I'm making an assumption here also that, that you have specific feelings around the gender gap, that you've experienced this gender gap in your own careers. I mean, these issues arise, or these organizations, especially in the non-profit sector, arise out of personal issues that we have experienced. So as women who have worked in corporate, that have experienced sort of low numbers of women in leadership, is that something that, why is it important for us to be thinking about the gender gap in the future? I think I want to ask.
It's really important, I think, because especially in our generation, it was really difficult. One of our members was a lawyer who was told by the partners that she would never make partner.
Oh, wow.
And which is why she went into retail and became a corporate lawyer in a different environment. I was an engineer, and at 65, that's a long time ago, and I was the only one ever. So, there was no mentoring from other women. We really fought our way through. There were no toilets in some of the places where I worked for women.
Oh, wow, is it? Make me think of Hidden Figures,
Yes, it's not quite far. I'm not quite that old. But it is like that. It was that people had never worked with women before. They couldn't string a sentence together because they didn't know how to speak without swearing, and they knew that when I was around they weren't supposed to swear. So they started not being able to communicate. And you have to learn how just to let them get used to you, and I've been a woman all my life and they've never worked with a woman before. So I think we in our age are very aware of it, more so than the next generation, but it becomes important for us to help them not experience those same things.
Yes, and I think also, I'm so glad you brought all of this up, because, one of the things before I started this show, and got into work dealing with gender inequality, I wasn't even aware of the gender gap. We don't have the language for the gender gap. Sometimes, and I think especially in less privileged or less resourced areas, you're not aware of sort of how, the broader sort of context of these problems and the statistics around it. Ladies, we have about 3 minutes left. I want to ask, how can people support the organization?
There are many ways in which you can support our organization. You can join our organization and become a mentor, or join our organization and help us to fundraise. You can sponsor our organization by donating money to us, obviously, and help us with our financial obligations. We are always looking for corporate sponsorship. You can market Link to Grow. You don't necessarily have to give a financial donation, just in putting us on the map and marketing us and advertising us in some way that allow the bigger community to see us internationally as well and locally. We'd love to be seen, because that is our biggest challenge. And we do self-fundraise. I've been very involved in fundraising, and it was actually my portfolio, and it's very difficult. So we are having 2 events. Suzanne will tell you about one event, and I will tell you about the golf day, but I think we should maybe do it in sequence. So
on Saturday, the 11th of March, we're having a concert, which is a tribute to Leonard Bernstein. So he was born 105 years ago, and most people know his most famous work is West Side Story. So we're doing songs and extracts from that. We've got some young singers from the opera school, and I think the latest movie by Steven Spielberg, the Latino girl who played Maria's sister, got an Oscar for that. And then the new movie that's coming out called Maestro is about his life. So it's very in the ether at the moment. So the concert is on a Saturday evening. It's in Sea Point. Tickets are 300 rands. And it's going to be upstairs on the 7th floor of a beautiful apartment overlooking the sea and the setting sun. So it's going to be a really lovely evening with young musicians and singers.
That's great, Suzanne. I have to ask about the second
Yes,
event because
and
we've got 1 more minute.
We have got a golf day.
Yeah.
It's happening on the 24th of March at Milnerton Golf Club. And we are busy advertising it. And the way in which you can help us is to either take a 4-ball, which will cost you 3,000 Rand, for a 4-ball, which works out to 750 Rand per person. There are prizes. There's going to be snacks. There'll be drinks. There'll be raffles. And we'd love you to come and participate and have fun. It is on a Friday, so you can take the Friday afternoon off. And the way in which you can actually sponsor both these events or get involved with both these events, if you don't mind, you can email me. My email address is shirleywishart@icloud.com.
Which is up on the screen right now.
And we'd love to have you.
Fantastic. I mean, those sound so great. I want to thank you both ladies for coming and sharing with us, and also for the wonderful work that you're doing. You are closing the gender gap. You are empowering young girls. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, Lenina.
We are going to take a short break, but we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we have been speaking about the empowerment and mentoring of young girls in grade 12. Now, we are almost at the end of our show, but before we go, we're going to play some more video footage about other organizations who are also doing very important development and growth work with young girls. Let's have a look.
The Mbogodo Club is a project that is run by the Justice Desk. It is based in Nyanga, the murder capital of South Africa. It focuses on supporting young girl survivors of rape and other forms of gender-based violence. There are 3 elements to it. The first one is self-defense and fitness, so that we're able to defend ourselves when we need to. The second element is female empowerment workshops, where they equip us to become powerful women and leaders. The last element is mental health support. Mental health is as important as physical health, and as girls, we go through a lot. I would say joining the Mbogodo Club was really a life-changing decision. Growing up in a community like Nyanga comes with a lot of challenges, especially when you're a girl child.
I'm a rape survivor. I was raped when I was 6 years old. And because of this incident, I grew up with a lot of anger and hatred. I even wanted to take my own life. But after I joined this great club, I've learned a lot of things. It has taught me to tell my story without being ashamed. Because I am not my past. And I'm not a victim, but a victor.
Growing up with the constant fear of being sexually abused wasn't really a pleasant experience. Growing up with the fear of dying in the hands of a man was not a nice thing. I used to be afraid of men. I never believed in myself. I never even liked myself. I was never a confident person. The project has taught me so many things, and it has really opened my eyes. It has taught me that I am worthy of being loved. It has taught me to love myself and to never look down on other girls. Because in communities like Nyanga, girls are taught to look down on each other and envy each other. But that's not what this project is about.
Now I will tell my story to inspire other girls who are also survivors, and show them that our past does not define us.
We are taught that all we as women are good for is serving men, and I refuse to bow down to a man.
Wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokodo.
That was a short video about some of the amazing work being done with young girls in South Africa to empower and mentor them. And that brings us to the end of our hour together. If I could pull out one thing from the wonderful conversation we've had, if you are interested in mentoring a young woman or a youth in general, one of the best things you can do is listen, to provide a safe space for them to articulate their needs and to take your lead from them. That's all we have for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lenina Rassool. Goodbye.